brisket is the Mount Everest of barbecue, imposing and intimidating. Conquering it firmly establishes you in the barbecue elite. Today, I'm going to show you how to barbecue a full Packer brisket, like the pros do in Texas. This is the full Packer brisket. The first step is to make the rub. Black peppercorns, fennel seeds, and whole cumin seeds. And you roast the spices in a dry skillet over medium-high heat to brown the spices, bring out the aromatic oils, give them a toasted, smoky flavor. You can see the smoke rising, smell the aromatic oils. So I'll turn the heat off. The spices are lightly toasted. Transfer the roasted spices to a spice mill. And grind to a fine powder. Amazing aroma. Now transfer the ground spices to a bowl and add coriander for an aromatic fragrance, and sweet paprika, brown sugar, which will help the meat caramelize, and finally, coarse sea salt and cracked peppercorns. Mix the ingredients for the spice rub with your fingers, breaking up any lumps in the brown sugar. This is a full Packer brisket, so called because this is how it comes from the packing house. A full Packer brisket is actually comprised of two separate muscles. On the bottom is this lean muscle called the brisket flat, and then on top, there's a second muscle, much more generously marbled, known as the point. Your first step is to trim the Packer brisket. The idea is to trim your brisket so it has what the great brisket master Aaron Franklin calls an aerodynamic shape. When trimming your brisket, you want to err on the side of too much fat rather than too little. Remember, the fat will melt during the cooking process, basting the meat, keeping it moist. I'm going to prepare the Packer brisket in a style I call East-West. We're going to spread it with a Korean chili paste called gochujang. You can find this in Asian markets and many supermarkets, or order it online. Gochujang is made with Korean chilies, rice, salt, garlic, all of which are fermented together. It has a lot of rich umami flavors that are going to go great with the brisket. So I like a first layer of the gochujang. Then season it with your roasted spice mix. And here's your Packer brisket with the double layer of flavor, the gochujang and the roasted spice rub. To smoke the brisket, I'm using an offset smoker. It has a firebox on one side, lower than the cook chamber. Open the firebox door, you can see I have a bed of lit charcoal. And to generate the wood smoke, we'll lay a log on the coals. Now close the firebox. The way you control the heat is by opening and closing these dampers on the firebox. Now, this is the cook chamber. You can see it's higher up and offset from the firebox. I'll open it up and pull out the bottom shelf. Then transfer the Packer brisket to the bottom shelf. Push the drawer back now to place the Packer brisket in your smoker. Close the door of the smoker and adjust the vent on top. You want a cooking temperature of 250 degrees. The Packer brisket is going to cook for about 12 hours. There are actually 3 stages to cooking a Packer brisket. At about 140 degrees, you will notice an interesting phenomenon. The temperature will plateau. It may even drop a little. This is called the stall. It's a natural part of the process of cooking a whole brisket. What's happening is, as the liquid evaporates from the surface of the brisket, it actually cools the brisket down, much the way when you perspire, it cools you down. The stall can last anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. Don't worry about the stall. It's a natural part of cooking the brisket. The temperature will start to rise again, sure as daylight follows night. We're 7 hours into the cook. We powered through the stall. It's probably time to wrap the brisket. Open it up. Look at that. With an instant read meat thermometer, we'll check it. We wrap between 160, 170 degrees. 165, we're ready. Now I spread 2 sheets of unlined butcher paper, sometimes called pink paper, on my work surface. Now the wrap serves 2 purposes. It seals in the juices and it keeps the outside of the brisket, the bark, from browning too much. Fold the butcher paper over one way and then you'll come over the top like this. Roll the brisket, then pull the top flap over the brisket, then just tuck the bottom in like this. And you'll cook the briskets for another 2 to 4 hours. It's been 12 hours and the full Packer brisket should be ready. Check the temperature. You can go right in through the paper. You're looking for about 200. We're at 199. That's good enough for me. Now the Packer brisket goes into your cooler. I know you're dying to try it, but trust me, if you let it rest in an insulated cooler, the meat will be even more tender and more succulent. Here's your Packer brisket rested for 2 hours. And look how beauteous that is. To carve the brisket, I'm using a Shun brisket knife. Pull out the pin, unsheath the knife. A full Packer brisket consists of 2 muscles, the flat, whose grains run this way, and the point, whose grains run this way. Cut the brisket in half. Then, on your flat, we'll just cut off the end here and start slicing the brisket. It slices beautifully. I'd like to call your attention to the smoke ring. That's that subcutaneous layer of reddish pink. It's a naturally occurring reaction that takes place when the smoke hits the meat. It's a sure sign that you have done your smoking correctly. So here are your brisket flat slices. And this end piece is a little bit too charred to serve in slices. So I'll simply cut it into dice and serve this as your burnt ends. We're going to carve the brisket point this way. Okay, beautiful. Look at that, look at that. You can see how generously marbled the meat is. Here's your brisket point. And you can see from one brisket, you have 3 completely different cuts of meat. You've got your burnt ends, your lean brisket flat, and your fatty brisket point. In Texas, brisket is traditionally served with slices of white bread. To play off the East-West dynamic in this dish, I have Chinese steam buns, and we'll place a couple of slices of brisket in the bun. Next, add a spoonful of gochujang barbecue sauce. The recipe's on the website. So smoky, so spicy. The meat is tender. I love the soft chew of the steam bun. This is a perfect fusion of East and West flavors. The Texas smokiness of the brisket, fire and spice of the gochujang. This is East-West brisket with a vengeance.